right, today we're going to explore colors and swatches in Adobe Illustrator. A lot of what we learn here today in Illustrator can be used in other softwares as well, except for everything's just tiny little bit different. One of the things that we can use with the swatches and the colors is allowing us to save colors that make it more efficient for us to work. When you're working on something, for example, that you know you're going to use a lot, you can go ahead and save a swatch. For example, if I'm working on a logo project and I know that I need to use that company's logo, I'm going to go ahead and make it a swatch and label it that way so that I can keep track of the different colors I'm using and I don't have to keep going back and adding them in. What we're going to do today is we're going to follow the instructions here on the left, and on the right, I have different boxes for you to add screenshots to. Screenshots are really the only way for us to see whether you have successfully added the swatches in the right way. So I'm going to ask you to either use Command Shift 4 on your keyboard if you're on a Mac, which opens up kind of a target option. And when you take a screenshot, you can just drag and drop that into the program and place it where you need to. If you're on a Windows computer, you can do Alt Print Screen and then Control V to paste it into Illustrator, which I think is the simplest way. There's also something called the snipping tool. We're going to go ahead and get started talking about swatches. I've gone ahead and given you an image down here, and we're going to practice our image tracing one more time to make sure that we really have that technique down. And we're going to image trace this little landscape flat design that I've given you. When you image trace this, remember that when you expand it, everything becomes an object. Now, I was on the wrong setting, so I'm going to come down here to my properties panel, and I am going to change that from default, and we're going to do, let's do high fidelity photo for this. All right, that looks fairly good. It's a little rough here and there, but really what I care about is getting the colors from today. When I do this, I'm going to go ahead and hit expand so that everything becomes objects. With this still selected, I'm going to go into my swatches panel and I'm going to make a group of swatches. Now, what this is great for is if you're working on something maybe somebody gave you and you want to use those colors and you don't want to have to eyedrop each and every individual color, just select the whole piece of artwork like I've done here. And then in your swatches panel, I'm going to hit the new color group option. And now it's going to pull up this kind of option for me. And one of the things that I can have checked is either from selected swatches or from the selected artwork. And I'm going to say convert process to global, and I'm going to uncheck swatches for tints because I like to tint myself. What we're going to do is when we make this global, and I'm going to name this, I can't remember what I asked you guys to name it, I'll be perfectly honest. Let me come back out and zoom out. Oh, I don't think I asked you to name it anything. That's okay then. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to say okay. And it's going to make a group of swatches in one folder. Ooh, it made a lot. Okay. And that's because of the way I did it. So actually, I'm going to undo this all the way because I want you to see the difference when you image trace depending on the way you image trace. So in case I wanted to do, I'm going to change this to 16 color. And expand, and then I'm going to make my group, and you're going to see I'm going to get a lot less colors. That's more reasonable and easier to work with. But one of the things I hope you'll notice is, I'm going to turn this up so you can see the little triangles in the corners? That means these are called global swatches. The other ones don't have them because they're not global. What a global swatch allows me to do is if I come in here and I select this thing, I can see that this is the color associated with it. And every time I change, it's going to highlight the swatch that it's associated with. So if I decided that I wanted this to be more like fall trees and I don't want green, and I decided to shift my colors to this kind of brown orange color, watch what happens to everything that's associated with that color. Everything changed at one time. I didn't have to go back and individually change everything. So this is going to allow you, if you change your color and you don't want to have to go and change every single thing, you can make it a global swatch and it'll automatically update your swatches as you change them, which I think that's pretty neat. So once you've got that, you're just going to take a screenshot. Again, on a Mac, Command Shift 4. I'm going to take that screenshot and I'm just going to drag it into Illustrator and place it in my boxes. I'm also able to add not only regular color swatches by going to new color swatch. So if I have any color chosen, we'll choose this shade of red. I can do new swatch here. I can do the plus sign to add a new swatch, and I can even name that swatch. You know, Wolfpack Red. We'll just pretend like that's Wolfpack Red. It's not, but it will pretend. And then it'll go in here, and then when I hover over it, it'll tell me the name of that swatch, which is really helpful. In the certification, a lot of the times they're gonna give you swatch names, so knowing how to name swatches is important. If I'm in my gradients panel and I make a linear gradient, and I could just choose some fun colors. I'm gonna choose a purple. I'm gonna do like a really pretty blue color. I'm gonna do an orange, no, pink. Pink, there we go. That's lovely. And I'm gonna adjust these as I want them and change things. Once I have a gradient in my color picker, when I go back to swatches and I add a swatch, it's now going to be a gradient swatch. So do me a favor. I want you to create 3 gradient swatches, and I want you to pick at least 3 colors per gradient. That way you can practice adding gradients and adding gradient swatches. Number 3 asks you to swatch a pattern. So let's talk about that first. A pattern in Illustrator can be anything you make. If you want to make some confetti, so I'll make some fun confetti here. I'm going to make a star. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to make a triangle or a rectangle, excuse me. Now I'm going to make a triangle. And I can just kind of create some of these, and maybe I'm going to set some colors here. Drag a few more out. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can be kind of really whatever you want it to be, whatever colors you want it to be, whatever kind of setup you want it to be. But the goal of this is that you create a pattern of some kind. Okay, there we go. So there we go. I got my little pattern here. Nothing crazy, just a little confetti, if you will. And I'm going to select all of it. And I'm just gonna drag it into my swatches. And you'll see my arrow now has a green plus sign. Now, if I put in a rectangle or a circle or anything in here and choose that swatch, it's gonna fill with that pattern that I made. So that was really kind of big. So I'm gonna shrink that down actually. I'm gonna delete that one. Yep, I'm gonna delete that selection. I'm gonna drag it back in. Okay. Oh, you know what I did? There we go. I accidentally changed this to the pattern and I wasn't able to add it as a swatch. There we go. So now I've shrunk it down, and now when I do it, you can see that pattern that I created inside that fill. If I double click on that swatch, I get some pattern options. One, I can name my pattern now, but I can change it to a grid or a row, and you can see it's up here behind me, and it's changing as I'm changing the options, but it's gonna allow you to kind of tighten things up. You can also do different offsets, is how tight things are, how loose they are, how far off offset they are. If it's by a grid, that offset does go away, so just know that. But you can adjust these to be kind of whatever it is you want the offset to be. And you can also change the size to tile to art. So it will like adjust to the art if you want to versus moving the tile with the art. And I'll show you what that means. So I'm gonna leave it like that to show you. And then I'm gonna hit escape to get out of this. So now if I change, see how it moves it with it versus being able to rearrange if the swatch was the other way around. But this lets you create textures and patterns and all kinds of things that are very helpful when you're drawing more complicated things. Why redraw grass over and over and over if you can draw it once and make it into a pattern? So do me a favor, make a pattern and then fill something with that pattern to show me that you know how to do it. Number 4 is asking you to access the library. So let's talk about the libraries for a second. It exists down here at the bottom of your swatches, and it looks like a few books stacked up. And in here, you have a whole series of different swatch libraries that you can go with. For example, corporate. where you can kind of come over and everything is grouped. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you like different commerce, industrial, corporate, things like that. But you can also arrow through them: soft, warm, saturated color, light colors, desaturated colors, dark colors. Anything that you can think of are pretty much in here. You want some metals? There's some metal swatches for you. You want some gradients? You want gems and jewels? There you go. But once you've gotten a group that you want to use and add in, you can click on any swatch and it'll automatically add to your swatches panel. If it's a group of swatches, like this one, if I click on that, it'll add the whole group to my swatches panel. So do me a favor, go through here and I want you to explore. And I want you to find me the Middle Ages color. Think about where Middle Ages would be if we're talking about something that's historical. What area would that be in? And just add that to your swatches library for me, and then let me take a screenshot to show me that you could do that. Okay. I also want you to show me that you can manipulate the swatch panel itself. So up here you have two choices. You have list view and thumbnail view. This defaults to the small thumbnail, but you also have medium thumbnail and large thumbnail. So depending on what it is you prefer, I like a large thumbnail. I think that is easier to see personally, but sometimes I switch to the list if I'm looking for a name. You're gonna find this happens quite a bit in the certification where they're gonna ask you for a swatch name like CMYK Blue, and you wanna be able to see that name. So switching to the list view can be very helpful. Show me that you can switch to the small list view versus the large list view and take a screenshot to demonstrate that for me. Swatch is based on color code. So what I'm asking for you to do is for number 6, I've given you a list of colors. So let's talk about how we do those. What we're going to do is you're going to double click over here to pull up your color picker. This one is a hexadecimal and it would just go in here, 6D2CE0. And then you have to click tab to activate the color. If you just stop right there, it's not going to move the color. And then you're going to say okay. Now you can add your swatch. You can either just drag and drop this way. You can hit new to add a swatch like this, but make sure you make a new group for me and make sure those swatches go in the new group. If you are struggling to move into the swatch, all you have to do is click, drag down, and it will go into the new group. Easy peasy. Okay. We're going to also then do an RGB where you're going to change the R, G, and B. Then you're going to try changing your CMYKs right here to get the color that represents that. The HSB is right here. And then you've got one more RGB. I just want you to practice RGBs. This one says K, and that stands for grayscale. So before you can do anything, you do have to go to your color panel, to your color menu, and you're going to switch over to grayscale for me. And then you're just going to type in that 67 right here, go back to your swatches, and then you can add that swatch. And there's my 67, and I can drag that into my group. The last 2 exercises, we're going to be using these 2 right here, and I've got them labeled for you very clearly. I'm going to click on the pink object, and I'm going to make what's called color guides using the harmony principle. Harmony principle. You may see that again. The color guide can be found under Window, Color Guide. And when I have that selected, I can drop down here and I can select the color in the color guide, and then I have all these different choices. What this lets me do is it lets me get some colors based on maybe monochromatic or shades if I want colors that are high contrast to my color. But once I have those, I can select them and go up here and say save colors as swatches, and it'll automatically add that group of swatches into my swatches to be able to use on a project. This is great if you really struggle to decide on colors and things like that. So again, let's just screenshot that you can add. We're asking for, what did I ask for? High contrast 4. And then the last one is number 8. You're going to use the blue object down here, or purple, depending on your thing. And I want you to see that one of the things that you can do with this is that when you have this, you can open up your color panel and using the panel menu, make a swatch of the complement and the inverse color. Okay. All right. In order to choose our complement and our inverse, we do have to open the color panel. In the panel menu, you're going to see invert and you're going to see complement. Once you've selected that color, you should be able to go ahead and invert your color. And I'm going to go back, I apologize, to RGB. And then I'm going to invert my color and you're going to see it change. And then I'm going to make a swatch. Say okay. And then I'm going to switch and go back to RGB. Or I'm going to undo, excuse me. And then I'm going to choose its complement. I'm sorry, it's invert. And you're going to be able to save those two as swatches as well. Okay. So add swatch, say okay. And that's why we swatched it originally, by the way, so that we could go back. Because if you undo, which I just did, you're going to lose your swatch. But you always have to flip back to RGB in order to invert your color. And then we're going to add another swatch and say okay. Again, just screenshot those. If you want to throw those in a group, that's not a bad idea. And then you don't have to worry about trying to just eyeball those three. And then just take a screenshot of that. Ooh, sorry, that was a lot. So when we're using colors and swatches, being able to really navigate the color, the swatches, and the color guide is really effective to be able to help you navigate colors, save colors, use colors, pick colors quickly. Hopefully this will help you work more efficiently in Illustrator as you go. Thanks, y'all.